In the summer of 1986, my family and I were living in Ogden, and I was a struggling artist, quote unquote, struggling artist. I was working as a sculptor. I had apprenticed with a famous sculptor in Denver a couple of years prior to that. His name was Ed Dwight. He was the first black astronaut handpicked by John F. Kennedy for the astronaut program. And then he was before that, he was a bomber test pilot. He was a really interesting guy. And he was a sculptor. He did a lot of historical black art. Really a good sculptor. He taught me a lot of things. He had his own foundry, so I helped him with the casting of the bronzes and stuff. So I learned that trade working with him. And so now here I was on my own, trying to make animal track belt buckles. It was really interesting. I had met a fella from Alaska, and he had this grizzly bear, brown bear, Kodiak bear claw necklace, and he wanted to make a belt buckle with the Kodiak bear claw. It's huge. It's about 5 or 6 inches long. It's big old claw. And he had given me that assignment. I'd taken a commission to do that. So that's what I was in the process of doing. I had my own little foundry set up. The casting of all of the silica, colloidal silica, sand, and different slurry mixtures to create the casting, and I was pouring the bronze. And so I had this studio set up in a kind of a storage shed behind one of my father-in-law's muffler shops. It was his number one shop that he first started in 1965. And I had enough space. I had about 500 square feet. And it was all set up, and I was making a lot of belt buckles. It was really quite interesting. I was having a blast. And whenever I would go there, I'd work all day long, and then it would be just about sundown. Sun was just starting to come down. And the back of the muffler shop faced west, and so they had all of these big glass windows and a big roll-up door and then a walk-in door on the back of this muffler shop. And when I would leave to go home, it'd be about 5 or 6 o'clock, I'd go out there to get in my car, which was parked right behind the muffler shop, and I would look in these glass windows and I could see the reflection of the sunset. And it was quite an interesting event. Every time I'd go out there, I'd be wondering, what am I going to see today? Because they had some spectacular sunsets in that area. They still do. But that's what I do. I go out and look in the reflection in the window and see the big bright sunset and these big yellow-looking lights and stuff, and it was really interesting. I get in my car and go home. So now I fast forward to this particular event. This one Sunday morning, I had a bunch of castings getting ready to cast. I was in the process of making them, and it says slur, you have to monitor it all the time because it settles out. If you don't have the machine going 24/7, the slurry settles out and it hardens and you can't use it, so it has to be monitored all the time. So this Sunday morning, I went in, it was all alone, everything was closed up, shops and everything. And I went in there and checked the machine, it was all going good and everything, and I came out to get in my car, and here you remember, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I look in these glass windows, and I see a reflection, this bright yellow flames looking stuff, and I think to myself, wow, that's an interesting sunset. And then I thought to myself, wait a second, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. The sun is still way over on the other side of the sky. And I looked closer in the windows, and there was fire coming. There was a fire inside this building. Man, did I panic. I had a key to the shop, and my father-in-law would go in there all the time. And so I knew just inside the door there was a fire extinguisher. Every day I'd go in there, I'd look at that fire extinguisher, so I knew it was there. And I knew I was going to be a hero. I grabbed the key in my pocket, ran up, opened the door, walked in, grabbed that fire extinguisher, went over by this big 55-gallon drum where the flames were kind of shooting out. It was almost like a startup of a jet engine. The flames were shooting up in the sky, up in the ceiling, toward the ceiling. Now I aimed that fire extinguisher at that fire and pulled the handle, and sploosh, nothing. I mean, that was the most downhearted feeling I have ever had. It was one of those things where I knew I was going to be a hero. I was going to stop that fire. And I pulled that handle on that fire extinguisher, and it was nothing. Now, these flames, it was really interesting. In the back of the shop, part of the shop was a warehouse where they had mufflers and, in racks and cardboard boxes and stuff. And right next to that, in the part of the shop, my father-in-law had set up a glass pack manufacturing plant. So they had these machines that would make these glass packs, and there was a little painting booth where the guy that was running the little factory there would spray this black lacquer and paint the glass back mufflers. And about every 2 or 3 weeks after he'd been working, the lacquer would build up on the floor of this little spray booth, and he'd have to take his flat shovel and scoop along the floor and dig it all out, because it was, it'd get 4 or 5 inches thick in there. Well, the Saturday, this was Sunday morning, and yesterday, the Saturday before that, he had done this cleanup job. He scooped all this lacquer stuff, chips and stuff off the floor, into this 55-gallon empty drum as a trash drum. Well, the lacquer that had been built up underneath wasn't quite dry yet, and so there was still lacquer fumes in there. And so if you can picture in your mind this barrel with all of this lacquer about halfway full of the barrel, and by the time I had come in the next day, Sunday morning, spontaneous combustion happened just exactly as when I walked out to get in my car to go home. And so these flames were just starting to shoot out of the barrel. And so when I went in, tried to stop it, put it out with the fire extinguisher, and it went sploosh. Nothing happened. By the time I got my wits back, what I was going to do, and I ran over to grab another fire extinguisher that was further up in the building that may be working by that 10 or 15 seconds time, this fire had developed to the point to where it was all the way up into the wooden shelving that was holding these mufflers and the cardboard boxes and into the wooden roof. And I couldn't quite get to the front of the shop because I was afraid I wasn't going to get out. So I hurried, ran back, got on the telephone that was by the back door going out, dialed 911. Now, I'd been living most of my life in California where the 911 was where it was emergency. They did not have 911 in that time in Ogden, 1987. So I waited and waited, hung up, dialed it again, waited. Then I hung up, got the operator. This is all about a 30-second thing, and I was watching these flames just devour the back of this building. And so when I finally got the operator on the phone, I told her what was happening. I was starting to panic now, because I was nervous, which isn't really my demeanor. I'm usually pretty calm and collected. And I had lost my wits completely by this time. Told her what had happened. I almost screamed into the phone. And so she asked where I was, all that kind of stuff. And so she said, okay, I'll call the fire department. And I ran out the back door and just kind of stood there, and it's about 5 or 10 minutes. It didn't take very long, but all of a sudden the fire trucks got there, put the fire out. And in a way, I was kind of a hero, because the fire chief, when all the fire was out and all the dust had settled, and he went in to try to, investigate what happened, he saw, after I described what I just described to you, and what I saw, it was coming out of that barrel, he looked at the barrel and he looked at the situation. He knew that that's where the fire had started. He could see it. And so, to my father-in-law, I'd saved the front half of the building, but the insurance investigators, they knew, because I had that foundry out back, and I would set up my crucible and heat up the bronze, 2,000 degrees, and they knew in their heart that I had caused that fire somehow. And so for the next year, about every 2 months while I was working, they would call me, want to hear my story again, trying to catch me in a lie. And a year later, they finally did the last phone call. I told them the exact same story that I just told you, and they finally let me go. In their minds, where they weren't trying to prove that I had caused that fire. But what an interesting tale. I went, in my mind, from hero to I hope I get out of here with my life in about 3 seconds. It was just incredible what happened when I knew that fire extinguisher was going to save that fire, save me. And man, that was a devastating experience. Always faithful.